Hello and welcome to the Briefing Room. I'm Bill Froehlich, your host from WTCM Radio News, and it's our weekly roundup of some of the stories that are making headlines across northern Michigan. And we've got a full table this week. Starting to my right, we've got Jeremy McBain from the Petoskey News Review. Welcome back, Jeremy. Brand new guest, Marisa McKay from 9 and 10 News. Marisa, welcome to you. Thanks for coming in. And after a long hiatus, Peter Payette from Interlochen Public Radio. Welcome back to you, Peter. Thanks. Good to see you. Let's start right off the bat here with one of the big stories of the week, and obviously, breaking news from Wednesday night: the government shutdown is over. So all of those stories that we've been working on for 3 weeks are for naught. But I know that in our own ways, we've all covered that to some extent and some degree. Let me start with you, Jeremy, and just kind of tell us what the last couple of weeks have been like for you guys, and kind of where you've left off as the shutdown seems to be resolved.
Resolved for now.
Yes, until January. Right?
Until January. What we did was we really focused on kind of a two-part thing. We had a lot of the national stuff through the Associated Press, and what I told my page editors was, for the print edition of the News Review, focus on the Associated Press stories, which are more analytical, telling people, here's what could happen, here's what is happening, here's what it means to you, really diving down into the issue, because they already knew the shutdown had happened and that the debt ceiling was coming. They already knew that, really. Right. Unless you were living under a rock, you didn't know it. And then the second part of that was we really needed to tell our readers what this meant to them locally. So that involved a lot of interviews with state agencies, how they were impacted, with the loss of some federal dollars or not being able to work with some federal employees because they were furloughed, and how it was impacting individual people in the community, such as like National Guardsmen. They couldn't go to their training because the civilian trainers that they had been furloughed.
Did the airport get?
The airport in Pellston was not impacted much.
Was there something big that surprised you in terms of those stories that the reporters brought back, or anything that just kind of jumped out at you as unusual? What
was unusual to me was that, here you had really several weeks, it felt like, of kind of a lead up to this, and everyone in the media, it felt like we knew this was going to happen. It was inevitable. Just the way the whole political debate was going, it was inevitable. But yet, what surprised me was almost the shock and how unprepared some state agencies were and some federal agencies were when it actually hit. And they were just as confused as regular citizens would be. You would think that they would have their plan B, plan C, and all lined up.
It almost seemed like nobody really knew what exactly was going to get shut down and how much of everything was going to be affected by it.
Yeah. It's in every day it seemed like there was something a little different that we didn't even realize that it was going to impact this. We had no idea it was going to impact food and drug inspections. We had we didn't realize that it was going to impact it could have an impact on craft brewers, or it's just these little things that just kept popping up as we were rolling along. And then when the deficit ceiling was coming, then it was, oh boy, we were in this much trouble just with the government shutdown, with this debt ceiling.
Now what?
What was I saw the headline or a press release about craft brewers, but I didn't inquire any further. What was the effect of that? It was patents?
Yeah,
they had to get approval.
Office.
For new, what is it, new
it's the new
flavors of the season or whatever they have to get.
And those licenses and those things weren't coming through.
It actually, kind of an interesting side story is that the government shutdown actually impacted me personally because
here's the real story.
No, that's the craft beer. Craft brewer. I need that.
We can talk about that later. But
I'm right in the middle of doing. We're doing our strategic planning for the next year. We do it every fall, and as part of my strategic planning, I have to put together an economic report of the area that's shared with our corporate board and the money guys. And as part of this, I got to get a lot of government numbers, and the shutdown hit right when I needed to get those government numbers, and all those websites were shut down.
That was the thing that really aggravated me, was that websites were shut down.
Yeah, we mentioned that a couple weeks ago.
I never looked into it, but I had to question, they're not contracting that to private database companies? What could be the reason other than to irritate the American public to shut down those websites? Maybe there was a good explanation. I don't know.
There kind of was. I mean, when you have a website, you have to maintain the website. You have to have somebody there to maintain the website, especially if you're a government website, because there's a lot of outside threats, hackers, for one, and government websites get, hackers attempt to mess around with government websites all the time.
Okay.
So if you don't have somebody maintaining that website, and
so they are housing their own websites.
Well, I mean, even if you house on the outside of the data center, it still costs money.
Yeah.
So say your government, your government agency, you have a website, and you're contracting the outside. And this is just my understanding of it. Okay? I could be completely wrong on it, but this is my understanding. Is say a hacker hits your website. Well, that's going to cost you money, even if you have an outside agency that's overseeing it. It's going to cost you money in order to repair that website. Yeah. Well, they don't have any ability to spend any money because the government's shut down. Yeah. So the best thing
they pay invoices daily. Yeah. Well, I mean, usually an invoice is like a monthly.
Yeah.
And I don't disagree with that logic, but I kind of fall in line with you, Peter. Just like I was trying to go onto the Sleeping Bear Dunes website, shut down. And how many times have we all gone online and found a random website that's not been updated since 2002? I mean, they can stay open and people can look at pictures and read information.
It is my limited knowledge of managing databases and housing those things. You are constantly fighting off cyber attacks. I think even Interlochen Center for the Arts is constantly dealing with people trying to take over computers or networks or whatever. So I guess something does have to be done, but it seemed awfully suspect.
It was.
Yeah, I agree. Marisa, I know you did a story on the government shutdown recently too. Tell us what angle you took for 9 and 10.
Well, to be honest, talking about the websites, the CDC being closed, especially as flu season comes about, the website was kind of a problem for some people because right now the CDC is making all these forecasts, making predictions, telling people if there's going to be enough vaccinations, what new strains could happen. Thankfully, there are enough vaccinations, especially in northern Michigan. None of the pharmacies we talked to were expecting to have a shortage. However, the average person who just wanted some information for themselves, the CDC information wasn't going to be up to date. So now that's 16 days of backlogging, I'm sure, and trying to figure out what some of these forecasts are. So that's kind of interesting. And then earlier today we talked about, or earlier this week, we talked about the EPA being closed. And there are a lot of groups in this area that have a lot of money tied up in EPA grant funding, specifically the Watershed Center, some land conservancy groups, the Conservation District. And what I found interesting, and maybe this is just my limited knowledge of how grant funding works, is you still do the work and then you're just not going to get paid for it or reimbursed for it until the government reopens. So for the last few weeks, a lot of groups have been having to either dip into reserves or finagle some finances around and use some money from their operations budgets or other budgets to kind of make up that difference. So the work is still being done, especially a lot of the work in Lake Michigan and some of these invasive species. Those are grants a lot of money, but nobody was getting paid for them. So now, hopefully, they will be.
They'll be catching up.
Yes.
What do you guys make of this notion that all the federal employees will now be getting back pay? I mean, that was part of the deal. But there's a sentiment out there that, wow, I wish I could be furloughed for 3 weeks and then get paid for it after the fact too.
Well, I don't really have I guess a problem with it because I mean they're really innocent in this whole, they're being punished for the complete insanity of our elected officials. This is, let's not joke ourselves on this. This was stupid. And I mean, completely stupid. And these federal employees were punished unfairly, I think, because so I guess I don't really have a problem with it, because
It also just makes me wonder too, how much money are we saving in the government shutdown if we're going to go back and fund everything that we shut down
we
for
lost
16
money.
days?
We lost a lot of money. It was something like, I think it was something like $20 billion.
Oh my goodness.
Saving money was never a pretense for shutting down the government.
Right.
I didn't hear that, at least.
No, I didn't either. But it struck me as odd that we're.
And it also was odd and annoying to me, seeing all these politicians stand up and say, complain about this being, this government agency being shut down, or these websites shut down, or these state or national parks shut down. Well, what do you think was going to happen when you shut the government down? Do you need a lesson in consequences of your actions?
You're prepared to give that lesson, aren't you?
Yeah, we kind of did.
Just come to an editorial meeting, the
Nice.
news review.
I know. And after seeing, after several talks with you, Jeremy, I sometimes wish I could sit in on an editorial meeting with you guys. You mentioned politicians. Let's shift gears, Peter. You've done a story on the upcoming elections in Traverse City with the candidates. There's a full slate of folks running for city commission. We've got a challenge for mayor.
Yeah, well, in fact, there's so many. The way I did my story was the only voices were in it were the two candidates for mayor, the incumbent mayor, Mike Estes, and the challenger, Rick Buckhalter. And then there was an issue piece on traffic. And so then I invited all the commission candidates, and I alerted them ahead of time that this piece would go up. Yeah. And so one of the questions you have in a newsroom anymore is, how do you penetrate the white noise of contemporary media? Because you can work for days on a story, right? And you put it on and you put it up on Facebook, and nobody anymore understands the algorithms that run Facebook. And so, nobody will see it. And meanwhile, someone will, ask what they should name their new kitten, and, it'll get all this traffic. So I sort of tried to make an event out of it, and I had all these commission candidates ready to comment. And so we ran the story, posted it, drove as much traffic as we could to it. And so then in the comments, you could see the commission candidates reacting to some of the ideas in the story and putting forward their own ideas, which I think was pretty successful. It was, because even with 9 candidates, even the League of Women Voters this year is not going to have a normal panel discussion, because you can't do it. Everyone can't talk for 2 minutes to one question. So they're doing an event, I think, this week, where the candidates will each speak to the room for a couple of minutes, and then they'll have a kind of mingling meet and greet where you can go talk to different candidates about things. So, but anyway, we decided traffic is kind of an issue that's regional, because everybody has to drive through Traverse City at some point, and it's also very hot locally, because many city residents are just apoplectic at the amount of traffic that runs through neighborhood streets and the inability to get across Division. So, and we made the piece a little provocative. It was fortunate Grant Parsons just filed a lawsuit on behalf of someone, but it's really Grant's axe to grind in many ways over Division Street. Last year, the voters agreed to give up a small amount of parkland along Division in order to if it's useful for some kind of solution to Division, to make Division a little less crazy and a little less dangerous.
Wasn't part of the lawsuit with the Bijou Theater as well?
Yes, it involves the same principle, because the city has to get a vote of the people to dispose of parkland. In the case of the Bijou by the Bay, there was no vote, and the city contends that's a management agreement, that they're just leasing that building to the State Theater for a time. The lawsuit claims that that's the same as turning it over to them, and a vote is required. In the case of Division, there was a vote. Parsons claims that it needs to be 60% approval, which the vote was just shy of that. The city claims that a Supreme Court decision in the 60s did away with that requirement, and so it only needs a simple majority. So I got Grant to say that Traverse City should be anti-car, and the new official policy of the city should be, we're not accommodating any more cars around here. And then I looked at some other issues. The bypass, I think, is one that is going to come up. And so we kind of laid all that out there, and then we got the commission candidates. And we got some pretty hot reactions. I mean, some people see that and they say anti-car. They can't even believe, why would you even let someone say that in a story? And so, but the idea was to kind of get an exchange going, and it was
Worked.
pretty good. Yeah, we were happy with it.
Nice. And I assume that's on Interlaken
Yes,
Public Radio website?
If people are watching this and they want to engage,
Perfect.
it's there.
Marissa, let me turn back to you. A story from yesterday, Benzie County. We had a elderly man who kind of went missing, and this is one of those stories that, I don't know, maybe it's tough for something like this for newspaper, because by the time you go to print and it comes out the next day, things will change a million times over. But
Web, man, web.
It's all, I know, it's on the internet now. Tell us, we were looking for Loyal Frederick, a man with Alzheimer's, so you kind of spent your day on that story.
Yeah, it actually started the previous evening. Vanessa Faze, another one of our reporters, was out there last night. The search party was it was just family members at that point, and then overnight, with those conditions, the rain and the weather, and just kind of, he's an 80-year-old man with his dog out lost, and he has this Alzheimer's disease, and everybody's very worried about his health and also his mental state and all of those things. So the search party grew. There were dozens of people. We spent our day at the search headquarters. There's a lot of activity around, and we were actually with the family doing an interview when they got the call that he was okay. So it was definitely a very happy ending to a story that I don't think anybody was really expecting to have such a great ending. But he was fine. Somebody had to change of clothes for him in their backpack when they were out in the search party, so he was changed. He asked for some food and some water, and then was reunited with his wife in the ambulance and went to Munson. So they weren't expecting any other health issues.
You were talking to his wife?
Yes, yeah, his wife Joanne. She was great. She gave us a photo so that we were able to put that out right away, and even shared the photo around with some of the search party. So because a lot of people who were there, they didn't even know the family. They just heard about it and wanted to help. So it was good to get a photo circulated so people knew who they were looking for. And this man has great-grandchildren, grandchildren, children. So a lot of these people searching were his family members, 30 to 40 of them. So, and it was really a community effort. So, and like I said, a very happy story. His dog, Susie, was with him the whole time, and it's kind of a man's best friend angle there as well, because she was rescued and had a little rescue vest on. So it was definitely a good story, I think, for some of our viewers. It wasn't, I think sometimes with the news you can get sad stories. Oh, yeah. This one was a good one, though.
So were you actually talking to his wife when she got the call?
Yes.
I mean, were we rolling on the...
We were rolling. We were filming other photos of Loyal. We were going to run this whole story about him on our 6 o'clock news show, Sound from the Wife, just talking about who he is and how, since he's been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, he has done this in the past, but he's always come home. So we were kind of chatting with her very casually, filming some photos of him. He's an outdoorsman. He was a hunter, so they were thankful that he kind of knew the area a little bit. And then all of a sudden, there were a few women around who got some phone calls, some sister or daughter-in-laws and granddaughters, and they all got a phone call, and it was a lot of chaos, a lot of tears, a lot of let's get everybody in the car and go to the search headquarters, because that's where he was going to be brought. So.
What time of day was this, about 1?
Yep, it's about 1 o'clock, and he was found not even a mile from his house. I guess he kind of went out the back door and did a very large circle to Fewins and Pioneer Road, so it was about northeast of his house.
Okay, so what does that change then for you as a reporter? I mean, you spend 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. And I know, we're mapping in our heads all morning.
Right.
All right, what am I going to use? What sound bites? How is this going to work? And we're just kind of developing the story.
Right.
1 o'clock comes in, your day totally changes.
And we also even had another crew out there who was working on a story simply about the search effort, how that was going. They were out in the field with a search crew when this all happened. Not the one that found him, but another one. Yeah. So it was a little bit, there's a few moments there where we kind of had to think, okay, we're really excited this happened. This is wonderful. And now who are we going to talk to make the story relevant at this point?
Completely different, yeah.
Exactly. But his wife was really great. She wanted to talk to us again and talk about how relieved she was. One of his granddaughters said that they will be putting a GPS tracker on him, so that it doesn't happen anymore. I think it was a joke, but also they're kind of serious about it. Yeah. And so we had to do a little bit of reworking, but everybody was really cooperative and wanted to talk, so it worked out.
It seems like with technology today, it'd be very easy to keep track of your elderly
the Benzie
relative.
County Sheriff's Office actually has a system it's for people with dementia or Alzheimer's. It's pretty expensive, the sheriff said, but they do have them there, bracelets.
I was going to ask because I knew we had one in this area. I just didn't remember which county it was. So that's great. Well, good. With just a couple minutes left, let's go back over to you, Jeremy. We wanted to talk about Petoskey Center, Petoskey Point.
Former Petoskey
hole
Point,
in the
now
ground.
called Petoskey Center.
What would you like to call it today?
I would like to call it a grass.
Is it flat grass
depression in the
now,
ground.
or are we still
it's a lot. It's a dent.
We want to know what's going on
Let's
with
call
it,
it the
Jeremy.
Petoskey
We don't
Dent.
know.
Today it's the
Well, there's-
Petoskey Dent.
Well, there's grass growing in there, and it looks very nice. A
Are
nice
they going
fence
to make
up around
soccer
it.
fields there in the most prime real estate?
No, we've got there's a couple developers that are coming up with some plans for it, and they're working with the city on these plans, and they've actually they're well-respected developers in the community from the Harbor Springs area. They did have a development over in Harbor Springs that stalled out about the same time as the former Petoskey Point development stalled out, and I don't think much has happened with that one either. But
And I'd like to add on their character for a newsroom, they were quite helpful. I mean, developers are often they don't want to talk to, especially public radio, and but these guys, they called us back. They didn't want to talk. We were trying to get an interview prior to the meeting where they were going to present their ideas. But then he agreed to do an early call on Friday morning so we could have it in our morning news. It's really appreciated when people will work with us to do stories, because we can't get to Petoskey all the time.
well, they really understand that the key to a successful development is to get input from the community, because this is a part of the community, and they seem to really want to reach out to the community, get the community ideas, and they've come up with a few different plans. They involve retail and I believe it's condominium residential type mix. I wouldn't really say there's anything too solid yet, because they're still taking ideas on it. The big talk this week was that they want to get into a partnership with the city to create a parking solution to Petoskey. But a parking area, it could be a parking deck, whatever. But they want to work with the city, kind of a co-management, co-ownership of that portion of the project. So it's very early stages of it. They just went to the downtown management board this week on it, and the management board is going to discuss it. They're not. They didn't immediately say yes or no. They want to discuss it, which is good.
Where are they at on the height of the tallest structure?
Oh gosh, I knew you were going to ask me that.
I mean, because the vote, going many years back, people authorized the variance or whatever the original developers got to go up 70 feet, which was the initial controversy.
Not that high. It's not that high, and they're still looking at different ways to lower the height too, because they want to make some money off the project too. So it's got to be a certain height for them to make money on the project, from what I understand. So they're looking at ways that they can bring that height down more, and provide more view of the bay from that location. I know they went before the Planning Commission, I believe. And the Planning Commission said, they had some concerns about the height and the size of it, and they were working on that as far as.
Somehow, I have the impression 4 or 5 stories from an engineering standpoint. There's some kind of threshold there, and if you go above that, then you're into a whole different mix of structural elements.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I know you'll be following that one.
Oh yeah.
Appreciate it. We're out of time, guys. Let's wrap things up, and I want to thank Peter Payette from Interlochen Public Radio, Marisa McKay from 9 and 10 News, and Jeremy McBain from the Petoskey News Review. For more on all these stories, check out their respective Facebook pages and websites, and we appreciate you tuning into the briefing room this week. I'm Bill Froehlich. We'll see you again next time.